Hey, real quick before we get into the battle, I do want you guys to go check out a video that I posted on the channel last week, and I will put the link in the description for this video. I am doing a giveaway in celebration of hitting 250 subscribers. I'm giving away a bunch of Steam games, so if you're interested in that, please go check it out. And with that, thank you very much. Let's hop into the battle. Hey GBA fans, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and I'm bringing you guys my match versus Melantosh for Week 4 of the D-League Season number 4. Now, this is a pretty long match, so we are going to play it on 1.5 times speed, so hopefully you guys can keep up. Hopefully I can remember all the plays. Before we hop into it, do want to mention, if you missed my team builder, the did go up yesterday at about the same time, so please go check it out. If you did miss it, let me quickly go through the team as best I can. I have a Calm Mind 2 attacks Lottie. I've got a physically defensive Leftovers Leech Seed Celebi with Protect for dodging Z moves. I have a physically defensive Roarcoon with Toxic. I have Raikou, which is Choice Scarf. I have a Lumberry Drapion, and I have a Stealth Rock Swords Dance Terrakion, I'm pretty sure. It's been like a week since I played this match, so it's a little hard for me to remember, but hopefully you guys will bear with me. Melantosh, as you can see, has brought Zard, Zygarde, Snorlax, Rotom Wash, Piloswine, and Mew. So pretty much all things I was expecting. I didn't have any mock battles versus Snorlax, but Snorlax I think made a lot of sense versus my team. He could pretty easily bring a Curse-Lax set, and because I don't have a Ghost type, and my only resists to normal type moves being my Terrakion and my Klefki, both are easily taken out by Earthquake. So I think like Curse Recycle, 2 attacks makes a lot of sense. Rotom is his best Orangutan answer. Charizard applies a lot of pressure to my team. Zygarde applies even more pressure to my team. Mew is really annoying for me to deal with. I'm really worried about setup sets of Mew, but there's a decent chance that he brings like a bulkier set with like Roost and maybe Taunt or U-Turn as a way to deal with my Terrakion. And then Piloswine makes sense because it's his best way of dealing with Lottie, as I can tell. Snorlax is also pretty decent at switching into Lottie if it doesn't have any boosts. So, in terms of lead matchup, I don't see any reason not to lead Lottie, because if he does want to lead with Zygarde or Charizard, Lottie has a pretty good matchup versus both of those things. What I'm kind of expecting is that he leads with Mew, and then if he wants to pivot out of Mew into Piloswine, because that's his best Lottie switch-in, I can then easily go into my Terrakion on his Piloswine because he will probably set up rocks, and then he'll be pressured to switch out and I can set up my own rocks. Having up my own rocks in this game is really important for preventing Zard from being a huge threat. So that's a little bit of my thought process, hope it makes sense, and let's try and blow right through this battle. Hit start. Good luck, have fun, Melantosh. Let's make this one a good one. Like I said, it is pretty long. It ended up being like 50 minutes in battle, so it's definitely exciting one way or the other. So he does lead with his Zard, which is quite good for me. It means I can get off my Mega Evolution immediately and just go for a Psychic straight away, as he does go into a Snorlax. So he's showing that this is kind of his default switch into this, even more than Piloswine. You know, Piloswine makes sense. He wants to keep that around for Raikou as well, which is kind of annoying for his team. I go right into Terrakion, trying to take the normal type move, but he makes a smart play and goes for Earthquake right away. So I once again continue my trend of taking fat Earthquakes early in the game on predictions. But that one was less of a bad prediction on my part, more of a good prediction on his part. I still have the opportunity to get my rocks up straight away, though, as he pivots into his Mew. So I'm thinking it's a defensive Mew, and then on this turn, as I bring in my Drapion, he goes for the Earth Power. It does quite a bit of damage. And so either it's some sort of max attack, or maybe it's like Timid with E-Belt, or it's Modest or something, but he is going to be able to take out my Drapion as I go right on into my Lottie. And then he withdraws hard as I bring in my Lottie, and so I'm wondering if it's potentially Choice Scarf. It's kind of hard to say, but it's definitely at least max special attack in some way, shape, or form. It could be like a bulky Scarf, which is kind of funny, but makes sense in the matchup. In any case, Snorlax comes in, is able to take my Dragon Pulse, and he's going to be able to recycle up his berry. And I bring in my Suicune, because I can figure I can potentially Toxic this thing, and that's going to be my best way to take it on. What I do instead is I go for Roar. I guess it's a later turn, then I try and go for Toxic on the Snorlax. But I do bring in the Zard, which is not at all bad for me. Get that 50% off on it. and I can go hard into my Lottie, anticipating the Solar Beam or potentially, you know, Flamethrower or something like that if he wants to predict my switch into, I don't know, anything else on my team. He does go for Toxic, and so this is a little annoying, and I perhaps should have seen the Toxic coming. He did bring Toxic on his Zard versus Greg in Week 1 when Greg had a Latios on his team. And so the fact that my Lottie is now Toxic means that it's not as reliable of a win con. But I am expecting his switch into Snorlax, and so I do make a switch out into my Terrakion, and expecting his switch into the Mew, I do go straight for Continental Crush. And so if he's a fully offensive Mew, Continental Crush definitely takes him out. If he's bulkier, then it doesn't necessarily, but I already know he's at least max attack. I do score a crit, however, and so based on what Melantosh told me after the match, he had like 220 HP investment or something like that, which means that the crit did matter. I think I could have killed with a high roll or something like that, but you know, the Mew would have been like really crippled at that point. I don't think he had any recovery or anything like that. So, in the, you know, the fact that he lost his Mew there was unfortunate, but I think the fact that it was weakened would have really hurt it one way or the other. He is able to Volt Switch with his, or you know, he's able to switch out with his Rotom into his Snorlax as I brought in my Lottie. I go for the Calm Mind, and he brings in his Snorlax. I'm going to go into my Celebi now, because I figure this is a nice Pokemon to set up Leech Seed on. But he is going to switch out. He's going to go right on into his Charizard. I got really excited about this at first, because I figured that Leech Seed plus Rocks will kill, but I forgot that that Defog just went off from that Rotom a moment ago. And so his Charizard is going to be at, you know, full HP. But, you know, having this Leech Seed is still quite nice, because I can go into my Lottie in a moment here after I go for Protect. I go for Protect just to get myself up to the most amount of HP possible, and also just to sort of scout what he wants to go for. Showing Protect might have been a little premature, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. I do now pivot into my Lottie, because either I'm going to easily take whatever move he wants to go for, like the Flamethrower, and then recover up from the Leech Seed, or, you know, I get in pretty safely as he goes for the Roost, and, you know, remain at a pretty decent amount of HP. I go for Dragon Pulse just because even if he wants to go into Lax, you know, I'm getting damage on that thing, which is pretty nice. He goes for a Flamethrower, so, you know, it's sort of a prediction game here right now, and it's still unbelievable how much damage that does. Even though I resist, it does like 40%, and so my Lottie's at a pretty low range of HP. Even if he doesn't switch out here, I believe this was the last turn of Sun, so it seemed pretty safe to go into my Coon. And what I'm more expecting is him to go into this Snorlax. And so it works out. I can try and go for a Toxic now, like I mentioned earlier, but he does preserve the Snorlax and goes right on into Rotom. Having Rotom weakened is certainly nice, just because Rotom can potentially be an annoying Mon, but obviously would have much preferred the Toxic onto that Rotom. I suppose another play I could have done there was double into my Tarak to try and set up Rocks, because Rocks then would kill this Charizard. But we make another double to catch the Charizard coming in here. And I am expecting him to switch out, so this is a good opportunity for us, I believe, to go for Roost as he goes back into Lax. No, we just go for Psychic, I guess, you know, in case he chose to sack it. But yeah, getting the Rocks up in this situation is really clutch, because as you can see, there's so much pivoting going on both sides, and neither of us have Rocks, so neither of us can punish. I do just go into my Suicune, because I don't want to switch in my Terrakion here. That's what he is expecting to happen. He does go for the Earthquake. And expecting his switch yet again, I am going to make yet another double. This time into Celebi as the Rotom comes out again. And I can easily threaten this thing with Grass coverage, which I don't have, of course. I only have Leech Seed. But if he wants to go into something like Charizard, I can actually Leech Seed and then end up killing it. Or we're just going for Psychic and killing it. Psychic does a pretty decent chunk of damage to this Snorlax, but he does have his berry still. And just breaking through this thing is proving to be quite annoying, just because I'm having a hard time getting my Terrakion in safely. Even if I had something like U-Turn or Volt Switch or Baton Pass on my team, the fact that Snorlax is slow means that I can never get a slow pivot out on it. I always have to try and get stuff in on doubles. And like because my Terrakian's already at a low amount of HP, it's very risky to try and double that thing in. But now that I do have this thing seeded, I can switch on out into my Suicune pretty easily, especially as I anticipate he's going to be going for the Recycle this turn. And, you know, do I try and go for a Toxic again here? Do I try and go for a Roar, or do I make a double trying to anticipate the Rotom to come back in? I'm pretty sure that I made the double. Yes, the Lottie comes in on the Rotom switch, and I can take this as an opportunity to go for Roost, since I did not go for that opportunity earlier with the Zard. You know, and as I was thinking about it, it made sense that I just tried to attack the Zard, because if he had roosted as I roosted, that could be potentially a problem. So I do Roost here finally, as he can go back into his Snorlax, and I'm going to end up making the same sort of plays I've been making this whole time. Pivot into my Suicune as the Snorlax is in here, and he hasn't gone for any sort of setup moves throughout this whole battle, and he finally reveals what it is. It's actually Belly Drum, so Belly Drum totally slipped my mind as I was looking at this Snorlax in the match. I was really expecting Curse, but Belly Drum makes a lot of sense too, just because it can immediately apply pressure to my team. And yeah, so he's able to take out my Coon. I go for Roar just because there was a decent chance that he went for Recycle there rather than going for any other play. Rotom comes in here. I go for Sacred Sword because I can't afford to let the Snorlax stay in front of me. Rotom is potentially in range of Sacred Sword, but I feel like there's a chance that it's not, so I go for Stone Edge, which of course has a chance to miss, so neither situation was particularly certain, and I do miss the edge, but he ends up missing the Hydro Pump, which definitely stinks for him, because obviously my Terrak is still alive, and like the reason it benefits me slightly more than it hurt him was that the Toxic put him in range of guaranteed being Sacred Sword. I don't have a way to, like, if I leave my Terrakion versus this Zygarde and it goes down, I don't have a way of beating Belly Drum Snorlax. So I have to go into my Celebi, and, you know, it gives him a free opportunity to Dragon Dance. In my Mox, in this situation, I was expecting him to blow his Z move, so I do go for the Protect, but Melantosh makes a really heads-up play and goes for a second Dragon Dance. So I decide, you know, if he's going to blow his Z move now, I'd rather try and sack my Raikou than my Celebi, because at least Celebi can take one and potentially retaliate with Hidden Power Ice. But he goes for a third Dragon Dance. And this situation is just brutal. There's nothing I can really do at this point. I suppose if I had just tried to attack it with HP Ice, it would have been good. You know, obviously given the move that he clicked. But there was a very, very good chance. It's like a 75% chance that he kills with Devastating Drake in that situation. And even if I go for HP Ice, it turns out that this is a bulky Zygarde. Like a bulky Adamant Zygarde. And so I could only do maybe like 35-40% with HP Ice. And so if he goes for Drake there, and then I bring in my Raikou to outspeed, and go for another HP Ice, I don't think the HP Ice from my Raikou would have even killed. I guess it might have. I don't know the calcs off the top of my head. But you know, Zygarde ends up cleaning up the game, giving him a 4-0 victory. And it's really frustrating, right? Because the score, doesn't indicate how close that game was. Like, it went almost down to timer, like I mentioned. It was back and forth the whole time, and we were playing really well, I think. Like, there were so many times where we made doubles predicting his Snorlax switch in, made doubles predicting his Charizard or Rotom switch in. And, like, I feel like 4 times out of 5 we were getting those plays correct. The only one that I really didn't get correct was the Terrakion play in the early game versus the Snorlax. But even that worked out because we got a Prox. So, you know, other than that, like, I think that we played extremely well. We just kind of got into a checkmate situation there in the late game versus that Rotom. Because the Terrakion revenge killed the Rotom. Well, not revenge killed, but it killed the Rotom. And then the Zygarde came in, and then, you know, I could have attacked it outright, anticipating the Dragon Dance, but it was just too risky because I was going to potentially lose to the Lax. Because since my Coon went down, it was the only one that I had on my team that had Toxic, besides Raikou. Raikou did have Toxic. But Toxic isn't even going to be enough to take on Lax with Belly Drum, because Belly Drum would allow him to like immediately apply pressure, and I can't really protect stall with Celebi. That wouldn't work all that well. With the Terrakion versus the Rotom, I could have switched out the Terrakion back into Lottie and then tried to kill the Rotom with my Lottie. But then it kind of would have been a situation where Snorlax comes in and is able to click Belly Drum and really apply pressure to my team. So I feel like I was just sort of in a situation in that late game where there wasn't much I could do, which stinks for sure. Like maybe if my Lottie hadn't gotten Toxic, I could have used that, to do some Calm Mind shenanigans. Because with a couple boosts, we easily take on like a lot of his team. We can 2-hit KO the Snorlax, 2-hit KO the Piloswine, and neither of those mons can like one-shot me in return as long as I'm above like 50% HP. Like an Icicle Crash from a Piloswine probably does like 60% or so. So because I was on max HP Lottie, so yeah, it's just very disappointing to have the score look like that, even though I think we played it really well and it was really close. But it is what it is. I'm mostly proud of the way that we played, and we are going to drop the 2-2, which is a bummer after being a 2-0 to start the season. So we are going to go up against Danza and aka Crobat for the Win and his Los Angeles Nidokings next week. He's playing extremely well, so it's definitely going to be an uphill battle in that one. But we really got to turn it around. And between my two leagues, I'm on a 4-game losing streak at the moment. So we'd really like to turn it around just for that reason as well. Really looking forward to that. Hope you guys are too. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you check out my opponent Melantosh. Make sure you check back to my channel for all sorts of other gaming and Pokemon content. So until the next time, I'll see you guys later.